Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voice Like a Lion podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pemberton, and today we have somebody who is the cash flow expert. And if you are someone who is a founder, small, medium-sized business, you are probably wondering the same kind of questions that I am. So I'm really excited for you guys to meet my guest today. My guest is Chris Miles. Like I said, he is the cash flow expert, which is insane because I haven't really met many people who are cash flow experts. He's an anti-financial advisor and a leading authority teaching entrepreneurs and professionals how to get their money working for them. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's such a pleasure to be here, Stephen. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Absolutely. I'm just thankful for you coming on the show because I think that your story and what you do is really going to help a lot of people. It's most likely going to help me because when I hear the word, when I hear cash flow, I think back, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is Grant Cardone because he talks about it all the time, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. But for those of us who maybe not as initiated, what does cash flow mean?
Cash flow is like profit. If you're a business owner, you want more profit. At least I
Yeah.
hope you do. If you don't, I don't know if you're a nonprofit, maybe that's the case, but even nonprofits have profit,
Yeah.
right? So cash flow is always about that. And that's even true in your personal life is how much more income do I have coming in than my expenses without having to live on rice and beans? Because we don't want to be living like Dave Ramsey, where he's telling you to live as cheap as possible and you cut out that freaking latte and all the other stuff so that your life sucks in hopes that someday you might have something. And that's definitely not what I'm all about. I'm all about profit. I'm all about having, a lot more money coming in than what's going out, and especially you have enough passive income coming in to where you're work optional, where you get to work in your business or your job because you want to, not because you have to.
That's really good. I think that I love that you talked about Dave Ramsey. I find that really fascinating. I mean, I come from a middle class household,
Mhm.
so Dave Ramsey was kind of the thing, right? So that was
Oh yeah.
what my parents always for the longest time, and they still are to a certain degree. They were just heavy, heavy savers. Like that's how they were going to be a bazillionaire, was just by saving every penny they had. And I just find that really fascinating that Dave Ramsey talks about all this stuff, but he's a multimillionaire. I mean, his house that he's selling in Franklin, Tennessee is like $12 million. So I think that there are certain aspects of things that he doesn't talk about, like actually cash flowing and what that means, what that actually looks like. Because I don't think that he's cutting out his lattes to be able to afford a 12 million.
It's true. I mean, he's got the mugs to prove it.
So where did you? Because I'm sure you didn't just like go to college one day and figure all this stuff out. What was the journey like for you to be able to figure out how to actually have cash flow working for you instead of just having to cut out Starbucks and having to go eat off the dollar menu every single day to make it work?
Man, and when I was growing up, I would have loved the dollar menu. In fact, that would be eating out for us. I'll tell you, I only ate at Wendy's twice in my childhood. I mean, if that
Wow.
gives you any idea of how cheap we were, right? Even for 5 years, I even lived in a trailer park. So grew up in Oregon. And my parents taught me good values. But when it came to money, it was a lot about really just how to not spend it, save anything you can, right? That kind of thing. And so, when I got into college, I vowed I wanted a different life. I wanted a life of freedom. I want to control my own destiny, my time, and all that kind of stuff, which is why I kind of left the college path to become an entrepreneur. Because I realized that if I really wanted to control that time and the amount of money I made and not have somebody tell me, not only how much money I made, but even, I had a job where they told me how many minutes a day I could go to the bathroom. I mean,
Wow.
that kind of thing, that 9 to 5 slavery. I didn't want that. And so when I was in college, I took a little hiatus. I was supposed to go back. I actually stayed dropped out, but I took a hiatus to uh, to get some business experience. I thought if I'm going to get an MBA, I should have real life business experience instead of just book smarts. And so I dropped out. I said, all right, what am I going to do? And the first business that came up that was interesting to me was being a financial advisor, because I figured worst case, I learned about money for myself. I even get to maybe help my dad, who he thought literally work would kill him because he'd already had strokes by his 40s, heart attacks by his 50s. He's like, there's no way I'll make it to age 70. I'll be lucky. And so I thought, man, if I can just give him a few years of his life back, that would be worth it. So I got into that business. And I'll tell you, I loved being a business owner. I loved being an entrepreneur where I was 100% commission only. There was no base salary to save me. And I had to really, hustle and struggle. I was working full time at a job and then doing this as a side hustle, being a financial advisor as a side hustle, and did that for 4 years. And then after 4 years, my dad reached out and said, Chris, when do you become my financial advisor? I thought, oh, I didn't think you want me to. I mean, you changed my diapers. I didn't think you actually want to hear about what I had to say about money. Well, I sit down with him and I see his financial situation for the very first time ever, right? First time ever I saw his financial situation. He had paid off all his debt. I mean, he was debt free, including his house. He had stuffed his 401k full for several years. And then as I'm looking at it, I said, Dad, you're 61 years old right now. If you want to retire today, you better hope you die in 5 years, because that's when you're going to run out of money. Naturally, you can imagine his response is like, okay, I don't want that. What else can I do? Mr. Financial Advisor, right? And I was like, I don't know. You did everything right from what I teach in the financial advisor world, which is not much different than Dave Ramsey, right? Which is, get debt free, stuff your money in mutual funds, and then you're going to be free somehow, right? And you could be on his radio show streaming the Braveheart music too. And so, I did that. And I told him, like, I don't know. Like, if I put you in this stock thing, if the stock market goes down, I don't know. I mean, you might lose the money. You might lose all your retirement. It might be worse. And that bugged me because I couldn't help my dad. And it was just a few weeks later, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he actually, I trained him to be a financial advisor, but then he left to go do real estate investing. And he's telling me, Chris, my life is awesome right now. My dad and I have partnered on some real estate deals, and we've doubled his income as a professor at the local university. And I said, wait a minute, hold on. I met with your dad. There's no way. You've just started doing this like 4 or 5 months ago. That's too good to be true. He says, Chris, let me ask you a question. How many of your clients are financially free where they don't worry about money? And I said, well, even the retired ones worry about running out of money, so they all worry about money. He's like, great, so 0. Good job, Chris. How about this? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these investments? And when I was really honest with myself, and there was over 100 people that worked in our office, I said, you know what? There's guys who've been working in our office since the late 1970s, and they can't retire either.
Right.
So I'd say none. There's your problem, Chris. And that got me on a journey, right? I started taking the Matrix red pill, so to speak, right? I'm going on this journey here where I'm learning about alternative investments, things like real estate, and learning about cash flow and passive income, the very things you learn about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but actually how to apply it versus just getting a nice philosophical, fluffy book, right? And then what's cool is later that year, I quit being a financial advisor. I vowed I'd never go back to teach about money again because I felt like a liar and a deceiver as a financial advisor. But then I kept doing this investing to the point where later that next year, I was able to retire myself when I was 28 years old. And that shocked me. I did not think it could be that easy. And as a result, of course, any 28-year-old that's unemployed pretty much, but not broke, people want to know what the heck I'm doing. And that's why in 2007, I came out of retirement to start teaching people how to break free of that rat race, how to break free of that mold that every financial advisor, every Dave Ramsey, every financial expert that's out there is telling you to scrimp and save and suffer and suck your entire freaking life away until someday you hopefully have something down the road when you're either too old to enjoy it or you may not even live that long to enjoy it. That's the thing I'm trying to break people free from.
Thank you, first and foremost, for taking us on that story, because I find myself along the way in so many different areas of it. When you're talking about sitting down with your dad as you're the financial advisor, I think about my parents, because my parents are very much in the same spot. Like, house paid off. The house had been paid off before I was born. And so well over 30 something years, that house has been paid off. Every car paid off. It's like everything's paid off. And their IRAs stuff full, same thing that you were saying. And I remember I just had this conversation with my mom not too long ago, and I told her, I said, you don't need to tell me your finances. I said, but look at them. And I said, you tell me, could you guys retire today and actually make it for the next 10 years? And she said, no. And I said, exactly. Yeah. So the thought process of just being able to sit there and put into mutual funds and do these things, and you'll have $1 million when you retire. I think that those are great concepts, and it sounds really good. Let's say you're living a lifestyle, you're making $100,000 a year, then you stop making $100,000 a year, you have 10 years. It's like, so you better die quick, or you better figure something out. So I think that when you're telling that story, it really resonates with me, and I'm sure to so many other people listening. But there's one thing that you said that you started talking about, because it doesn't just relate to people working a 9 to 5. It's also, I've seen people build themselves a very high paying job by creating a business. So even with entrepreneurs who, someone like me, let's say, where, because this happened, we were doing $1 million a year, and we realized it's like, okay, as we grow the business, I want to grow stuff passively. But for someone who is a small business owner and they're starting to increase their business, yes, double down, focus on your business, grow it, cool. But at a certain point in time, you should have something that is passive. So how would you instruct, how would you help somebody figure out what that passive model would look like for them?
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, it's always easy with people that are employees, right? Because
Yeah.
employees kind of get it. They're like, listen, like if I don't keep working my job, I'm broke. Business owners are a different animal because business owners, here's where the truth is. Like your number one investment is your business, right? There's
Yep.
no doubt. The trap that business owners get caught into is that they quote unquote reinvest money into their business. Now I reinvest money too, but when you reinvest 100% of your money into your business all the time, and maybe you take a small paycheck home, whatever it is, maybe you have a decent lifestyle even, right? But when you're always just reinvesting, when your number one investment and the only investment is always your business, this is what Mike Michalowicz, author of Profit First, says that you're not profitable, right? If you're reinvesting 100% of your money in your business, you're spending all of your money. You have zero profit, right? And even if it grows you to making 10, 20, $100 million a year, who gives a crap if you can't do anything else but that, right? That's the thing that, and especially after 2020. I mean, 2020 was such a weird year, wasn't it? Because
Yeah.
all of a sudden we found out, we learned. I mean, we always kind of knew it, and I'm not a huge fan of the government. I mean, I'm okay with minimal government, right? But not like the kind of government we have. And then all of a sudden we find out in 2020 that they could shut you down because you're quote unquote non-essential. That to me was scary because that's when I realized, wait a minute, even though I was okay because I was virtual, there are a lot of business owners that think that they're okay, but they get shut down for months at a time. They could be toast. And so this is where every single business owner needs other streams of income outside of their business. You need money that's coming in from outside. And so when you have that profit, don't just reinvest everything back in your business, especially when you're a mature business. You don't have to reinvest everything. You realize that the more you reinvest, the rate of return on your money goes down. So reinvest where you get the max ROI in your business so that you do generate more revenue and more profits ideally, but then also take some of your money, your profits home and invest that in things like real assets. Don't gamble it in Bitcoin and that kind of crap. Don't throw it away in the stock market because you can't control that either, right? You got to buy real assets. And the only thing that's been proven besides business, if you look at the Forbes 500 list, right? You need to look at the richest billionaires in the world. They all have businesses in common. That's the number one easy proven, model for becoming a millionaire, multimillionaire, or billionaire. But the second thing is real estate. And that's where, again, I buy real assets. I don't buy things that are just seriously traded on markets and they can go up or down because Biden, has a brain fart and he can't remember what his last words were, right? Or Trump says something on Twitter and all of a sudden Tesla tanks, well, come on, Elon Musk says something on Twitter and Tesla tanks, right? I don't want to have my life determined about somebody else's business screwing up my life. If I'm going to invest money in any business, it's going to be my own first and foremost, because I can screw that up and I can blame myself. I can't blame somebody else because that's not what stewards do of your money. And so I buy real assets. And that doesn't have to be just like your rental property in your backyard. Like, for example, I've got assets that vary from, I do have rentals, but I have rentals in the other part of the country. Like I live in Utah, but I've got rentals in Tennessee, North Carolina, just sold off a couple in Alabama, things like that. Like I've got rentals in other places of the country where I get better cash flow. But I also have things like raw land that's all over the country. And I have somebody else invest it. So I'm the financer. They go do all the hard work and I get to be a 70% partner in that business. Cool thing is I've invested 400 grand in this business in the last couple of years, and it's now generating almost 10,000 a month. Again, me hands off, right? That's freedom to me, having that kind of success, mineral rights, oil and gas. I mean, you can literally have the land that's your collateral and you can still get paid royalties off the drilling and things like that. You can invest in franchises passively. You can be in a car wash business. And again, you're hands off. You're not the operator, but you're the financer and get paid off of those profits. I mean, there's so many ways to make money outside of the stupid mutual fund world, which is high risk, mediocre returns. I mean, the stock market only averages it. Even just here, and we've had a really good 30-year run. The real return of the stock market is only 8.3%. Not 12% like, guys like Dave Ramsey promised that you get, right? Which is BS. That's why he hasn't been sued so much, because he's a TV personality. He has no accountability to the crap that he teaches.
Yeah.
right? But he'll tell people 12% all day long. The market has never averaged 12%, at least not on the long term. A couple years, yes, but not long term. But he's been teaching that forever. So if you're only earning 8%, and that's before fees, and that's before taxes coming out, that's why you end up like our parents, right? And I'll tell you, Stephen, like your parents, like what they did is miraculous. The fact that they were debt free before you were born, I mean, what percentage of people can even claim that?
Yeah.
But you've made a perfect point, right? Is that it's not about being debt free. Debt free does not equal freedom. It's really about how much income is coming in. And the problem is in mutual funds, if you're lucky enough to save $1 million, like you're using that example, just so you know, Fidelity, which is like the largest 401k provider in the country, Fidelity came out with their stats of how many people have at least $1 million in their IRAs or 401ks. It's 810,000 out of 45 million. That's like less than 2%. About 1.5% of people have at least $1 million. And of that 1.5%, 35% when they were surveyed last year said they think it will, quote, take a miracle to be able to retire. Maybe like your parents, right? They might be that 1.5% that said it'll be a miracle. Why? Because in the traditional financial advising world that I was in at one point, if you had $1 million, if you didn't want to run out of money, you were told to only pull out 3% a year, not 4%. The 4% rule is not even a rule. It's lame stuff that came from 1974. That's not even true today. We were taking off the gold standard since that point, So like 3% is really the new number. Well, 3% of $1 million is $30,000 a year. You're living below the poverty line as a millionaire. You are a broke millionaire. Like that to me is just criminal, So even if you want 100,000 a year lifestyle, you got to save up 3.33 million in mutual funds, which is really dang hard to do when the returns suck, right? And so, which is totally different because, for example, I mentioned $1 million, you pull out 30,000 a year. Well, I had a client in California that was exactly what his financial advisor told him. He just retired from the military. He's one of the top ranking generals in the military. He retires. He has $1 million in his retirement account. Well, when he tells him 30,000 a year, he's like, I live in California. Nobody lives on 30,000 a year. Homeless people live on 30,000 a year, right? Like we can't do that. And I can already hear, so there's people in different countries or different part of our country that's single saying, oh, I can live on 30,000 a year. You guys are spoiled brats. Okay, shut up. Like we know. Okay, we get it. That's not the point. It's not about trying to survive. Like you just try not to die. It's about trying to have a life, right? Well, he didn't want 30,000 a year. Well, when he came to us, we said, well, let's look at other things, other alternative investments, like in real estate and even oil and gas and things like that. Well, that same $1 million kicks off about between 100 and 130,000 a year, not 30,000. Then he pays taxes on it. 100 to 100, that's a big difference. It's not that you have to have more money. It's how do I get my money to work harder for me, so I have to keep working so hard for it.
Yes, that's so good. I love all those stories because there's so many different ways I can go from that. But when I think about $30,000 a year, let's be real. I don't care who you are. You barely living. I don't even know if you're barely surviving, because in today's economy, especially after 2020, everything has shifted. I remember 2020 is when I quit my job and I went fully into business. So almost 4 years ago now. And what had just happened, because I left in June. So March is really when the world shut down. And I remember I'm sitting there in May, so a couple months later, and I'm looking at my 401k through Fidelity. And I'm talking to this guy because I'm over a warehouse at this time. I'd worked my way up in corporate, done all this stuff, did everything right. And I'm talking to this guy and I said, I'm going to stop funding my 401k. And he was appalled. He's like, how could you? It's like, the company matches it. It's like, if you just give it all you got and you stay here for another 30 years, you could have. And I just said, dude, I just lost $23,000. I said, everything I've worked for the last 4 years just went up in smoke. Actually, it was 5 years at that time. Everything I worked for the last 5 years basically just went up in smoke. And you're telling me to keep investing in this thing because it'll be fine. And I just went, it's going to take me, on average, it's going to take me at least another 4 years to make my money back. I was like, I could go take my 23,000 I just lost. I could go lose 23,000 on my own. It's like I could have done something else with it. But I said, the thing you don't understand is, I said, it's not just that. It's like, it's the way that they're investing it. I said, I could have taken that 23 grand because if you do enough research, you can see like what your account fees are, how much they're charging you to manage it. You can figure out where they're actually investing it, how aggressive. And most people don't even take the time to go look at how their money's actually being invested. They just think it just sits there and it gets interest, but that's not how it works. And so for me, is I just thought, okay, if I have 20, if I took the rest of my money out and when I quit, and I was willing to take the capital gains tax. And then I just deferred it because I just thought, if I take my money now, I have a higher likelihood of making the money that I need to pay my capital gains tax and make the money back that I lost. And that's actually what happened.
Mhm.
So, I mean, especially for you as you're going through that story, is like, that's what I hear is don't just get entranced with what you hear. There's no way that you can live off of $30,000 a year. There's no way that you just stuff a 401k and just hope that it keeps going up, because all it takes is another COVID and you're losing a big chunk of money. That's what happened. And even when you're saying like the 8 point something percent average, the word
Mhm.
average is most people cannot stomach the down years. It's like, yeah, if you kept your money in, you've probably rebounded. It's fine. The same thing with Bitcoin. Like, I'm not invested in any cryptos. You and I are on the same page. And, but it's like, if you could stomach when crypto went from $60,000 down to 17,000 for Bitcoin, and then now it's back up, if you could stomach it, then your averages are good. But that's why it's called an average, because most people cannot stomach when you lose almost $50,000 per share, basically. So I love what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I've got, in my shower, we got two shower heads. If I turn one up on scalding hot and then the other one on freezing cold, the average is warm, but I can guarantee I'm going to be really miserable, right? And it's it's true. Like I love what you brought up there because it's almost become like a religion with the 401k, hasn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like it's almost religious to the point it's like dogma, even though it's
Yeah.
rhetoric, but it's still like people are like, how dare you? Because financial advisors and the financial market, which are really like it's really like financial pharmaceuticals, right? It's like the
Hmm.
pharmaceutical industry. Like they pitch to all the doctors, this is the way to fix people, right? Buy my product. And that's exactly what's happening in the financial world is that they're trying to put everybody into the same old thing. No, this is the way to do it. Why? Because financial companies, like you said, always get their fees. They always get paid whether you make money or not, guaranteed. And so for that reason, I think that's one kind of unethical, anyways. I mean, granted, they're working, quote unquote, right? But they're not really working that much. They can't control the stock market. They're literally making fees off of you gambling your money. That's what
Yeah.
they're doing. And when people say, "Yeah, but you get the match. It's easy money. It's free money. It's dumb not to take that." Well, that's fascinating because when I've done the numbers, the math every time, even if you get 100% match, because a lot of times people say, well, I only go up to the 100% match, then I stop,
Hmm.
which is better than just trying to max fund them, which is really what you have to do if you want to have any kind of piddly retirement, right? But even then, like that match, it's fascinating because long term, it only adds about 2 or 3% a year return onto your numbers. 2 or 3%, not 100%, right? Because it's not 100% compounding. And trust me, if you put in a calculator, 100% return on putting in 20,000 a year for the next 20 years, you wonder why you're not richer than Bezos, right? Because it's just not real. It's not true. It's not a true compounding 100% return. It only adds about 2 or 3%. Well, guess what? Fidelity, to pick on them again, their target date retirement funds, right now, about 85% of millennials only pick the target date retirement funds. Well, guess what? Those target date retirement funds, I went and looked at their last 10-year performance compared to the market. They did just over 2% worse than the stock market. And they have a 0.75% fee, which means you're losing about 3%. So what does that match give you? Maybe 2 or 3%? Guess what? The match just made up for the bad performance. You'd be better off just investing on your own in the stock market without the freaking 401k match. And even worse, if you're a business owner, you're paying your own 401k match, it's even dumber because you're like, wait, I didn't get a rate of return. I still had to pay that money to myself to make that money. So to me, if you're a business owner, having your own 401k is ridiculous. I've had so many business owners like actually shut down their 401ks, even for their employees. They said, you know what? We give you a 3% match. We're just going to give everybody a 3% raise. You can do whatever you want with the money. And never do you see people say, oh no, I didn't get my 401k match. No, they don't care. They get a
No.
3% raise. They're like, I'm going to do whatever I want with it. Maybe I'll even do my own investing, right? That's the thing is like it's such a big crock of crap, that you're given. I'm trying to obviously be nice and edited for you here, but it's true. It's like it's just such a big fat lie that the financial institutions have brainwashed you to believe that that is the way when it's not. Like it's been proven over and over it doesn't work. Yet when you look at business owners that actually do go and do other investments outside their business, I mean the business alone is awesome. When you
Yeah.
start doing other investments outside of it, that's where the multi-decade millionaires start happening inside the business world.
And that's what I love about real estate. And that's what I love, that that's what you teach, is because I my dad does pretty well with options and everything else stock market wise, but
Mhm.
I just sit there and I go, okay, that's great for you. But options are very volatile. He'll even admit that.
Mhm.
It's like, and I even as he broke it down to me, I said, Dad, what's the difference between doing that and just going to Vegas and hitting the casinos? I said, there's not a big difference. And that's why even at 20, because I was 20, what? I was 26 when I had that revelation when you were talking about the 401ks. It's really just a crock of crap, like you said, because it's there to make you feel good. But I was sitting there and I added up those numbers one day. I did the numbers on my own 401k when I was sitting in my office feeling like I was on top of the world. And I went, wait, this match didn't really match nothing. It's like this thing hadn't done anything. And that's where I just came to that revelation. And just for everyone listening, it's the same thing. Is it is really ask yourself a question. It's like, why do I believe that this is the way I should do it? Why do I believe the 401k is the thing? Where did I actually get that? I think that
Yeah.
not enough people actually take the time to do the research. And this is something I would love for you to talk about, because there's a stigma or maybe a dogma around it as well that, well, 401k is easy to invest in. Stock market's easy to invest in. That's why I invest there. But real estate's super hard, especially if I want to do anything. It's like I can barely afford my one house. I'm trying to save and do all this other stuff. How could I ever go get another rental property, or, buying an apartment building? That's just insane. And a multifamily, there's no way. And why would I buy land? Then I'd have to clear it in case somebody wanted to buy it. And how do I find a developer? Investing in real estate is just way too hard. I would love for you to talk about that piece.
You bet. So I'll answer the first one. The 401k, where did that all come from? Easy. It existed in the 1970s. It was created then for high level executives. Reason being is because the top tax bracket was like 89%, the top income
Mm.
tax bracket, right? So if you could get a deduction to then put you in a lower tax bracket, it totally made sense. But then the government picked up on this. They said, the government really created this nice little partnership with financial institutions, because the financial institutions have big lobbying groups. They always want favors, right, with the politicians. But the politicians are saying, listen, we know Social Security is broke, and we can't keep this up. Like, people are living longer and they're wanting more money. We need something. And so they said, let's take this 401k that's only meant for really rich executives, and let's apply it to the rest of middle America, right? And that's kind of where the 401k was born in the mid 80s, right? Again, it was already existed, but then it became more available for everybody else at the mid 80s. And so that's where it's really trying to bail the government out of the responsibility of saying, hey, we kind of screwed up on the Social Security thing. We didn't think it would actually go bankrupt, so we need help. They saw the writing on the wall. That's why they started making some changes. And of course, then financial companies love it because they get their guaranteed fees all the time. So they're selling that lie. The government wants that lie perpetuated, and really for them, it's not a lie. It's just take responsibility of your own life, which is not a bad thing. But when you combine the financial companies, their self-interest of saying, wait a minute, we can make a lot more money, a lot more profits by just getting people to, you know what? Let's teach them this. Let's teach them that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. We'll even say that Einstein said it, even though he never did. We'll just say that he did. So people think, oh, that's smart. Yeah, I should compound it. Yeah, so let's grow it forever so that our cash flow, our own profits in our company grows forever. Oh, and what else? Well, eventually we're going to take that money out. Well, how do we make sure we still stay profitable as a financial company if they pull the money out? Oh, I know. Tell them to live on less than the interest because there's inflation. We don't want to run out of money too soon. So just pull out as little as you possibly can. So then we keep growing it while you're alive, and then we don't lose any money, right? If you really think about it, it's just business, And granted, we're all about profit, right? That's the thing we do, but that's really where it came from, right? It was like two powerhouses, self-interest combined together to brainwash the crap out of you. So you think that is the only way to go, right? And it's just not true. It's actually the proven way to get really a mediocre life. Like, you're going to be, whatever you put into a 401k per year after inflation is what you'll live on per year. If you start stuffing away, you're maxing out your SEP IRAs, because you're a business owner, makes a lot of money. You're packing away $50,000 a year. Guess what? After inflation, you'll probably only have about $50,000 a year to live on. That's it. So that's the first answer. Now, of course, people say, great, well, what's the option? What's the alternative? Because real estate, it's hard. Like, I actually got to use my brain, where 401k could throw it in there. I can set it and forget it, all that kind of junk, that they teach you to believe so that they make more money on you. But with real estate, it's true. Like, if you try to be an active real estate investor, As a business owner, that's even worse than even when I see people that are just W-2 employees. Because as a business owner, your time and your energy is everything. Because if you get distracted with any bright, shiny object, and you've probably done this in your business at one point or another, where you got distracted on some little project that ended up tanking and it took your focus off the main thing that made your business successful, right? Investing is no different. You do not want that kind of effect on your business, because I can tell you, no matter what you can do in real estate, it won't make up for bad decisions in your business. You want that to be protected and secure. So how do you find something that takes up a minimal amount of your time? It doesn't require you to become like some real estate investing expert. It's going with passive investments. Like I was mentioning before, when I have rentals in various parts of the country, I don't manage them. I don't even find them. Yeah, I find what are called turnkey companies, turnkey real estate companies, to find them for me. They'll have the properties already there, and I'll know how much profit I'll make even before I purchase the place. So I know exactly what rent it collects. I know everything about it right ahead of time. And then I don't manage it because there's a property manager that manages that. And so, yes, I still get profits even after paying a property manager their management fee. I get to take all the rest. That's where it becomes more like mailbox money, so to speak. Now, can things go wrong? Sure. I mean, the property manager could be a piece of crap. They could be horrible. So you want to make sure you vet good property managers and find a good one and hold on to them. It could also be that, there could be disruptions in that cash flow from time to time. I'll tell you though, I mean, I remember I've done master classes on my Money Ripples channel before, and I did one about passive income, and I showed like when I bought a rental property out in Memphis, Tennessee, and that rental property, if you look at the total, I mean, I put 32,000, and I compared that. I was like, what if I put my money in the stock market back in May of 2017 at the same time, or was it 2018, whatever it was, whatever year it is. I put at the same time, if I put that money in the stock market, I would have over $65,000 in the stock market from 32,000. It would double. It would have doubled in that period of time. But the crazy thing is, I've actually made over a 300% rate of return on my real estate without doing jack squat. That's profit, net profit. Yeah, so that includes appreciation. But even if you take away appreciation, I still kick the crap out of the stock market. So even then, I still got it. And I got better tax benefits because I didn't really have to pay tax on it, because I get to write off with the depreciation and everything else. So when you factor all that in, like real estate, it was like it kicked the crap out of even the stock market that just roared really in the last 5 years, right? Ever since 2020. So that's the difference. And again, like I mentioned, like raw land, I'm not buying and selling the raw land. I have guys that have already been doing that. They have a good track record of doing it. I'm a partner with them. I'm letting them do the work. I pay them all of the cash, and we're 70-30 partners. So yeah, we got 10,000 a month, but even then, $400,000. I mean, I would be thrilled if I have $400,000 paying me 1% a month. That would be $4,000 a month, right? That's 12% a year. That's pretty dang good. Yeah. Well, still, even after the 10,000, if I pay them the 3,000, the 30%, I still walk away with 7,000 a month. Like in this case, I'm making well over 20% a year net after all of my business costs up front, after getting the money in and doing all those things. Even on the oil and gas side. Now, some of those projects, they do great. Some of them not as great. One of them, I mean, my worst investment right now is return like 8% a year. Like that's the kind of stuff I look at. So, which is like what the stock market does on a good year, on a good average. So that's the difference. Like I don't have to become an expert. But here's what you do need. You do need a network, right? Whether you build it up like I did over the last 20 years, or you borrow somebody else's network, you do need that kind of connection or network to help you out.
And I think that's perfect advice. So I think that this is a good question, but if someone wants to work with you and they came in and they were working with you specifically, would you help them be able to establish that kind of network? How would that work?
Yeah, we actually do help with that. We're not investment advisors by any way, shape, or form. We're very clear on that, but we are good strategists and we're connectors. The big thing we try to find is, one, can we free up cash flow even before you invest? Yes. I had one client, and in particular, this couple, where they said, "Hey, we got 5 million in stocks. Can we get it in the real estate instead to diversify a little bit more?" Well, even before we did that, we realized if we refinanced their property, we could pay off a few of their loans, and even sell off one of their investment properties. And because they have a business, we also found ways to save about $30,000 plus a year in taxes. Even before we invested a dime into real estate, they already freed up $75,000 a year, just by getting their money to produce better, their situation. And then they go and invest it. And so now they're in the multiple six figures with the amount of cash passive income they could create. And so So it's things like that, right? So I have a whole, list of people that we've vetted and stuff. Doesn't mean it's ever guaranteed, but still
No,
for you to have to borrow our network to be able to say, hey, who are the people you have in your network that you've invested with, Chris? I mean, not I haven't invested with every single one because I can't invest with over 20 operators all at the same time. But if I haven't at least done it, then somebody else has done it. That's in our network, and so that's pretty much what we do. We definitely offer that kind of guidance to help people step by step to say where's the cash we can use to invest, where the best places that could work in, and then who are the people that are more trustworthy in that space.
and how can people find you? Because if they're listening to you talk about helping somebody basically not only free up cash flow, because I asked about just investing in real estate, and you said, "Hey, I'll do you one better. I'm going to tell you exactly how we help this person basically free up 6 figures worth of income that they could then invest." And so now you've just given us both sides. So for people that are really interested, how can they find you?
Yeah, just go to moneyripples.com. You can also follow our podcast, the Money Ripples Podcast, on YouTube, iTunes, where you follow podcasts. And even on moneyripples.com. And we've got all kinds of free information on there. We even got things like we have a strategy called Max ROI Infinite Banking that we use that works great with business owners as well, and helps you be able to get your investment money to pay you twice, essentially.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so everyone listening, make sure I'll have everything down in the description. If you want to go find Chris, go to Money Ripples. I will have it all on there so you can just make it easy. Also, I always ask everyone this question, and in some kind of variance. But what is something that you're overcoming right now, whether in life or in business?
Man, right now what I'm overcoming is physical, a little bit of physical. I'm about to turn 47, so I'm trying to de-age myself a little bit, but I'm also a pretty avid marathoner. In fact, a few days after this recording, I'm running the Boston Marathon, right? So it's my
Wow.
third major out of the 6 majors worldwide that I'm running.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it can take a beating on your body a little bit. And having to slow down to some level, having to focus on the healing process. I mean, work with chiropractors and massage therapists and stretch therapists and everybody else under the sun, right? And even doing the lymphatic flushes and things like that. I mean, doing all these things that I never thought I'd be doing. But I'm grateful at least I have the financial means to do so, because I can't say that most people are that lucky. But that's the big thing that I've had to really struggle and overcome is getting really fast, getting faster as I get older, and then having my body fight against me a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And having to overcome that. It messes with your head a little bit. It definitely does.
Well, when you go run the Boston Marathon, wear a GoPro so I can be there along with you. Because the only thing I'm running from is my problem sometimes, or the only thing I'm running to is the fridge. So we're working on that. But I do appreciate you just being honest with where you're at, because I think that so many people can relate to that. They can relate to the story that you've already shared about how you grew up, but also just the physical aspects. I mean, even for me, just now turning, going to be 31 here in a few months. There's a lot of aches and pains that they were not there just a couple of years ago, and now all of a sudden they've just randomly showed up. I didn't pay for the upgrade plan. Like when I turn 30, I should have the same subscription model that I have in my 20s. I don't think I need that upgrade, but I do appreciate you so much, Chris, for joining me on the show today. It was incredible. I know I learned a ton. There was so much gold that was in the show, and I'm sure so many people got some great things that they can not only apply to their business, whether you're in business or you're working a 9-to-5 job. There's so much to learn just from this and from Chris. I highly, highly recommend that you go tap in with everything he has going on. If you want to be able to find more cash flow, if you want to be able to understand what it actually means to invest, not just put it in a 401k. This seems like the absolute leading authority, in my opinion, from everyone I've talked to, from the books I've read. This is the guy that you should talk to. And for everyone listening, I'll talk to you in the next episode.